The first of the 2 new Star Trek series this season has debuted. This one is a comedy from Seth MacFarlane, so let's talk about it. So in the Orville, Seth MacFarlane plays Ed Mercer, a down-on-his-luck but talented officer who's promoted to captain of the Orville. The ship doesn't have a first officer, and so through a weird set of circumstances, his ex-wife who cheated on him is promoted to the first officer of the ship, and they are sent off to help different civilizations in a very Star Trek-like comedy series. It's really not a spoof of Star Trek. It really does kind of come off like a ripoff of Star Trek with some humor to it. So the obvious natural comparison would be to that of Galaxy Quest. But this really is more like Star Trek with humor, Seth MacFarlane humor sprinkled in it, than it is Galaxy Quest, which definitely had spoof elements to it. Overall, the word that comes to mind is bland, because on the Star Trek side of things, it just kind of feels like a generic new take on Star Trek when it's doing Star Trek type stuff. Feels very much so like Star Trek The Next Generation with updated special effects, but even the crew, the cast of characters kind of line up with different people from Star Trek The Next Generation. The types of missions they're on feels kind of like Star Trek and Star Trek The Next Generation. And there's not a lot of new world building here. It's the hopeful, optimistic view of Gene Roddenberry through the eyes of Seth MacFarlane. So in that sense, there's not a whole lot new in the Star Trek side to it. It's just some new Star Trek. On the comedy side to it, it's also kind of a very bland, vanilla version of Seth MacFarlane.
Return fire.
Give me the device, or I will destroy your ship.
Sorry, can you move like 2 steps to your right? It's just a lot of dead space there. Just perfect. Yeah, sorry, you were just very weirdly framed.
What?
His humor's known for being very crass, pushing boundaries, going too far. That's kind of his definitive thing. In here, it's just as juvenile, dick jokes, affairs, cheating, that type of stuff. But it's a fairly sanitized version of it, so if you really didn't like his stuff because it's too far and goes over the line, this doesn't go over the line, but you'd be like rolling your eyes a little bit at it. And if you love his over-the-top crossing the line stuff, it probably doesn't go far enough for you.
Lieutenant Commander Bordas, your entire species is male, isn't it?
That is correct, sir.
Probably not a lot of arguments about leaving the toilet seat up and that kind of thing, right?
Mocklins urinate only once per year.
Really? I'm up 2-3 times a night.
That is unfortunate.
It is.
And that's kind of probably the big problem with this show, is that it overall just kind of feels like a vanilla version of Seth MacFarlane doing Star Trek, because there's just nothing distinct about it. It's just not too many people are just going to be offended by it and be like, this is horrible, but there's not a distinctive flavor that makes make anyone a rabid fan for it. No one's going to be like, this is the best new show of the season. They'll be like, yeah, that's kind of a watchable. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's not as good as I thought it was going to be, but it's watchable enough. And that's kind of what the show is. And you just, even sort of their kind of interesting elements to it that they add to it would be this kind of whole relational drama with his ex-wife and the bickering back and forth to it. But I don't think anyone was sitting around thinking, hey, what if there was a Star Trek comedy where the captain is bickering with his ex-wife who becomes his first officer? That, like, no one's wanting that. That's not the thing that they thought was missing. And it's not like it's explored on such a level that it adds something real new to the table. It's just kind of like, okay, this isn't horrible. It's passable enough. And that's kind of the big takeaway from this whole thing. It wasn't funny enough. It wasn't new in the realm of Star Trek enough in any sort of direction. But at the same time, I watched it and went, okay, I'll check out the next week's episode. And that's really where the positives are. So let's say I just talked about the negatives, move on to the positives of it, to say that you could see where once they find their footing, once they kind of figure things out, how this could kind of like really be a fun TV version of Galaxy Quest or something like that, that once it finds its footing. This pilot episode, though, just it felt like they were trying to play it too safe and just dabble in a little bit of it. So we got some Star Trek stuff, we got the relation stuff, we got the dick joke stuff, but none of it was strong enough yet. But like I said, I wasn't put off by it. I will check out the next one. If I were to try and put a rating on this, and it's my rating of pilots from you gotta see it to just stay away from it, I'd put it right in the middle in that category of the verdict's still out. I haven't decided yet. I could be won over. We will see what happens. But how about you? What did you think about it? Tell me down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And let me know, are you kind of a Seth MacFarlane Family Guy fan? Are you a Star Trek fan? Are you both? Were you excited about this? Kind of give me your context of your feelings towards it. For me, I've seen one episode of Family Guy. I've seen the movie Ted, I think one time. I enjoyed it enough that I didn't hate it, didn't like it enough that I saw the second one ever. So I'm not really a big Seth MacFarlane fan, big Star Trek fan. You can see I've got some stuff from back in the 90s. So that's kind of my take on it, where I landed on it. I'll check out the rest of it. I'll see where it goes. It hasn't pushed me away just yet. It also didn't win me over yet either. The verdict is definitely still out on this one. If you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews, TV reviews from time to time. I do ranking videos every single week. But the key thing is I don't want to just talk about movies and TV. I want to talk about movies and TV with you. So join me in the comment section. Let's get a lively discussion. Let me know who you are. And thank you so much for watching.